Welcome to Scott Pilgrim versus the podcast, a podcast where so far we have unsuccessfully challenged Scott Pilgrim, but I think this is it. This is the episode where we're finally going to take that show down. Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. We're going to be talking about episode 4, whatever. And I'm Alex.
I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And if you haven't watched the episode already on Netflix, do check it out because, of course, we're going to get into spoilers. But Ramona is investigating the disappearance of Scott Pilgrim, and to do that, she tracks down Lucas Lee to a movie set where he is playing Scott Pilgrim in a movie called Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Life that is supposedly written by young Neil. We get a lot of in-jokes about paparazzi. We get some more ninja paparazzi, which I know you love, Pete.
Oh, my God.
And
so
by the end of the episode, very similar to the last episode, we were talking about they have a formula now. She's reached some sort of closure with Lucas Lee. Whether he has is, I guess, TBD or to be discussed at the end of the episode. And she has a new suspect by the end, who is Todd with his vegan portals. Lots of other things going on here to talk about.
Cameos
galore. So many good cameos. Yes. But I do want to say this was, I believe, Brian Lee O'Malley and Scott Ben David Grubinski. Is that his name?
Ben Grubinski, yeah.
And Scott Pilgrim, who wrote the show. Ben David Grubinski. Yep. I think, I don't know if this is their favorite episode, but this is the episode they were most excited about. Favorite. Because they felt like, apparently they were kind of hitting a wall in the writer's room, and they got to a point with this where suddenly they had a breakthrough. I don't know what the breakthrough was, but then they figured out, here's how to crack it, and here's how to focus on it. And I kind of agree with you, Pete. I think this is my favorite episode so far.
Oh, that's crazy because this is my least favorite episode.
Oh no! What? Come on, dude!
It's not. It's all.
I laughed out loud.
You LOL'd? Oh man, yes. I can't wait to learn about that.
Is the problem, Justin, that since you're Hollywood, this hit?
You're the Hollywood. You don't like being made fun of.
I look at myself in the mirror every day. I don't need to see it reflected in my Scott Pilgrim episode.
You're the young Neil.
No, I'm not saying it's bad by any means. I just think this is my least favorite of the ones so far because of, I think the major thing is now we're back on a track. Now we're back into a formula, a structure, and I was loving how wild and anything could happen the other episodes were, and now we just sort of see what's happening in a way, which...
Whatever, young Neil.
Yeah. But like I still liked it, and this one just felt a little lighter, and it just felt different in tone a bit. Like there was a lot of like just cutaways to like someone saying "yuck" or whatever. Just it felt more Looney Tunes than the more emotionally driven stuff from the other episodes.
Well,
it's not a drama all the time. I'm sorry.
I'm not saying
it had some fun, and is very epic in battles. What the fuck, man?
I love fun. Look at me. My hat's all sideways. I'm a fun guy. So, like, you don't have to tell me what fun is.
Well, I don't know what your problem is then.
I just said
you're
my
just
very
this
light
dramatic
complaint.
line producer who's like,
I hear your complaint. I disagree with it because I am the opposite here. I find comfort in terms of the structure. I do like shaking things up, like, but constantly shaking things up gets a little alarming at a certain point. It feels like maybe just like hone in on what your show is about. And what I like here is that we set the structure of the last episode. We're following it here to really drive it in. I think we're probably going to shake it up again as we go forward. There's only 4 more episodes left in the entire season and a lot of X's to go through and a lot of other things to go, set up. But what this does is it's much subtler than the last episode. Like the closure, or at least the catharsis that Ramona gets with Roxie in the previous episode is very emotional. And the way that they drive into it through the animation and through the characters, it hurts to watch. With Lucas Lee, because the whole idea is him doing the whatever the entire time, it's much gentler, but I really liked where they got by the end, where he starts in this place like he doesn't care about anything. And you realize by the end, no, he actually does care about a lot of things. And I feel like they play that out in his final whatever, there's a smirk there, but it's kind of, it's not the disinvolved smirk from the beginning. It's more the knowing smirk at the end. And I like that. It's a gentler arc than the previous episode is, I guess.
Well, and I do like that each episode now feels like it is a full-on reflection of the X that we're dealing with. Like the Roxie episode was much more emotional and a little more like sort of moody, and more the way it was presented even visually sort of felt like an extension of her. This feels very much like a Lucas Lee, like, yeah, sick, bah! And that's what we got for the season.
It's an absolute blast of a good time. Plus the whole thing of like, who is playing, like if Lucas Lee is in this movie, who is he playing if it's not
there's
Lucas
fun.
Lee? And the fact that the reveal that he's dressed up like Scott Pilgrim was hilarious, because when Hollywood takes over a project, it's usually a buffer, younger looking person. So it was just so funny on a lot of different levels. I love the way this opens. And yeah, we do. It's this comfort of like, oh, we're going to spend time in the X's world each time. This is so cool. Also, it's different because of like the fight wasn't a fight that was close to what we had before. We had Lucas Lee versus the paparazzi here, which is such a funnier thing. And the ninja, the whole playing on action movies, and like, oh my God, the whole reveal of that broken skateboard. There was so much.
That was sweet.
It was.
I will
really
say, Pete,
cool.
you're right. Like in Hollywood, the people are always played by younger, buffer versions. That's why in the CBC movie, I'm actually playing Pete. I'm playing the Pete role. So just look forward to that. I've got a lot of close observations.
Garbage plates now, bro. You got to bulk up.
That's a thing. Garbage plates is not a good bulking up food.
Bulk up, bro.
It is fat meat and
the regular
carbs.
Rochester winter.
That's your friend to bulk up the belly.
Yeah, the Rochester Marathon, they recommend you have 3 to 4 garbage plates the night before, right? To really like bulk up for the race. And by race, I mean the sleep race.
Sleep nap race.
I'll this is kind of reiterating what I said before, but just to drive it on farther, and maybe this is what bothered you about it, Justin, to the point where you're clearly furious.
No, I'm not that bothered. I was more in responding to you guys loving this episode.
You've got steams coming out of your ears. There's a red line going straight up your face like a cartoon.
Again, a very Looney Tune, just like this episode.
Exactly. This feels like a re-pilot to me, which is weird because it's the 4th episode. But for anybody listening out there who doesn't know, they don't really do this that much anymore in the streaming age, but they used to do it all the time with broadcast shows, and I assume they still do. I don't really watch procedurals, so I don't know. But you have the pilot, which sets up the situation and the characters and everything, but often it's kind of janky, like it sells you on the thing, but it's very much like, hello, I am a police detective, and you are a criminal whose specific skill is in this. Let's go solve this mystery. Goodbye. So the second episode, they reiterate it. They do it again. And the reason for that is because they wouldn't stream things back in the day. They wouldn't rebroadcast things. So you had a chance, if you missed the pilot and heard it was good, to watch it again and you get the same premise again. So that's kind of what this feels like there to me, is just sort of a reiteration of the thing. But I do want to say again about the relationship stuff. I think they take that a step farther here, because a lot of last episode was Roxie being like, you really hurt me, and Ramona being like, you know what, you're right. Here, it's a lot more about what we were talking about, I think, in the podcast, if I remember correctly, where it's about how people view breakups differently. Like the breakup is being done to you, so you are going to view it with hurt, or you're going to view it like, I really hurt this other person. But it's this very Rashomon 2 sides of the story. Rashomon is 3 sides, I know that, but like it's 2 sides of the story, and they paint the full picture because we, the viewers, get to see that in this episode with Lucas and Ramona. But at the same time, it's meant different things to them in their lives.
Yeah. And I also think like that's what was not in any previous iteration of this. So it makes sense that is what we're focusing on in this new version, the new format we've hit in these last 2 episodes. And I also like that each sort of storytelling of it feels a little different.
Like it's like a heightening of an idea, which is really cool, and a comedy thing as well, where they're taking something we know and love, and what if we did this? Oh, what if we brought it to this other level? And we've seen a lot of different iterations of it. To have it be focused on the exes and Ramona and Scott Pilgrim not even a part of this is a fresh, new, heightened idea. And it's fun to explore because we love this world already. I love how smart they're being with this property.
Yeah.
I've
never complained about it. I've never complained about it once.
You literally spent the last 10 minutes complaining about it.
Just I was not complaining.
Screaming at us.
Losing his fucking mind. All right, I get it. You're young Neil, and you didn't like how they made fun of you. But your line, Justin, when you were like, that's a super fast trash can, I fell out laughing. It was so
keep
funny.
saying that's me.
It's so good, man. Your delivery on that was so great.
What I was going to say is that the Lucas Lee felt like a home movie, as opposed to in the last one, and the Roxie stuff felt a little different stylistically. This had its own sort of nostalgia drive to it that felt a little different visually, and so I thought that was cool.
Yeah. Well, what should we talk about here? We've been jumping all over in place and generally talking about the episode. But let's talk about the meta stuff that happened here, because it changes the whole Scott Pilgrim. Like, Scott Pilgrim is this thing that always feels like, despite the Envy Adams of it all and her being a big superstar, it feels like it's on the outskirts. It's like literally people wandering through the streets of Toronto and they're like, man, I hope we make it as a band in our 20s. And this feels like, even though they're setting it in Toronto wood, it's very knowing. It's very like, we've been in Hollywood for a while. It's looking back. It's very meta. And I like that, but it really changes the flavor of the thing once you get on set. And like, Wallace gets cast in the movie.
Oh, yeah, it was hilarious.
Yeah, Ramona is skating around set and everything. And I like it, but I'm curious to see what you guys think. Are they taking it too far? Are they taking it too far from the premise, from the setting?
No, I like it because it feels like they've made progress in their lives, so they're talking about different things creatively in this. And I thought all that stuff was great, like the Wallace Wells hitting on Ramona. Again, we get this butt shot. I don't know if you guys have noticed, there's a lot of butts. There's a few. This one was literally a highlighted butt of Envy Adams playing Ramona. Right?
No. It was
or maybe
Ramona
it was actually
away.
Ramona. Sorry, it was actually Ramona. Yeah, it was literally a spotlight on her butt. I don't know. It's me talking butts, but they're butts. This show's focusing on butts.
That was just very weird to me.
We did a podcast where there were killer butts on Doom Patrol.
Mm-hmm.
No, there's butts here.
I agree with you.
Everywhere.
I thought that butt shot was weird. Like, I know they're emphasizing the fact that the guy playing Wallace Wells was aggressively heterosexual, but it was also strangely timed because there was this whole online argument conversation about Mary Elizabeth Winstead's butt in Ahsoka, because men kept commenting on it and people were like, stop being gross, leave her alone, it's just a shot from the back, calm down everybody. So to have that argument happening for the month and a half or so that Ahsoka was running and then be like, here's your butt, guys, was weird.
It is weird. I just think this show likes butts, and that's fine. Yeah. But the line when they're filming, and
she's just skating away.
She's skating away, but the problem is, like, you know that there's an old lady inside of there, and it makes you want to respect it. You want to respect that butt instead of leer at that butt, because that's like 80, 90 years old, something like that. That is a butt that's lived.
How dare
and
you.
hashtag respect that butt is your sort of movement or message that your charity.
I think movement is fair. If you want to donate, please go to respectthatbutt.com/azalman.
/throwing your money in a trash can.
I was like, hey, everybody stop being gross about Mary Elizabeth Winstead's butt, and then went into that.
Then you got
and you
gross.
did that.
Yeah.
It's just like how Lucas Lee was like, that's so stupid. I would never do that. And then the news thing is like, he's dating knives. I fell out laughing so hard.
Yeah. Also, that was a fun little meta thing because they were like, she's actually 31 years old, which is how old I believe Ellen Wong was when she was filming Scott Pilgrim.
And I think you actually made that point when we were covering the movie. So I thought that was very funny. I love the line, was that gay enough? And then Wallace replaces the Wallace. That was really fun. I would never grind myself to death. Yeah. So Wallace. So like the meta commentary, which is I think what we were started to talk about, is strong in this episode.
Conversely, Something that I know we've been talking about every episode that we are 100% unable to divorce ourselves from, but I'm curious to get your beat on it anyway. Again, this episode is the one to me that felt like we might have gotten past the tipping point where you had to have watched Scott Pilgrim and or read Scott Pilgrim to understand a lot of what's going on in this episode. Because by the time that we're depicting Scott Pilgrim's precious little life and talking about the way things actually went in the movie, went in the graphic novels, we've entered like multiverse of madness type territory. And again, I don't know what anybody who is like, oh, fun anime, let me check this out, is thinking at this point.
Yeah, I think you'd have to.
They're thinking, I better go check out these other properties.
Maybe, and I guess maybe there's a case. It would be interesting to talk to someone who is watching this without seeing anything else, because maybe if the first episode had enough of the bones of it that you could interpret, because Lucas Lee just steps out wearing the Scott outfit without commentary that he's playing Scott. Like, we don't know what any of that means unless we've seen everything that's come before. But maybe the first episode of the series does lay enough out that a noob can get it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like impossible to understand, but there are so many things like the grinding thing, like everything that happens in the Roxie as well. Well, maybe not everything since we saw that before, but a lot of the stuff that they're referring to that's sort of like future stuff, or would have been future stuff if it had happened. Again, it makes it a little tough.
What's fun is they also, because they're getting so meta in this, that they had the moment where Lucas Lee literally jumps a shark, so that was a fun also kind of Hollywood meta thing.
What did you think about the use of "This Is My United States of Whatever," a song that I haven't thought of for, I don't know, decades at this point?
Oh, I don't know that song. Is that a song for real? No.
Yeah. This is my United States of whatever. I'll look up who does it.
Nice.
Okay. Right.
I thought that was cool. Of course, Alex, you recognize the Ninja Paparazzi from the game.
I did actually. I made that.
Those used to be action figures as well back in the day.
Yeah, and they were in the second episode as well. They were tracking Envy Adams. I know you're.
How is your progress on the game?
Not great, man. Liam Lynch, United States of Whatever, from the year 2000, from the album History of America.
The year 2000.
Yeah. Wow, everyone's got a song today. I like, just if we're going through the episode, I like the right after the hair dye, which we saw again, another runner for the season. We had Lucas Eel, all the fans holding up the signs in the wrong order was really funny.
Yeah.
Young Neil, just like being weird.
How many times she says young Neil is hilarious. Like, I loved how she just kept calling him young Neil.
He has gotten weird in this show. That was another thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about, because I mean, I'm the original young Neil stan.
You are.
I love young Neil. This is not what I thought young Neil was from reading the book or even necessarily watching the movie. They have, I feel like, hit him on the head with a hammer several times for this show, and I don't mind it, but at the same time, it's
he's Hollywood, you know what I mean?
He is, but it's been like that this whole show. I think I don't know the name of the actor, I forgot it, but he's playing him dumber, I feel like. I don't know.
Yeah, or just much more innocent, like first day on Earth kind of a guy, which is, I think that's funny, and it makes sense to heighten him in that way when that's sort of Scott's game a little bit too, and a lot of characters are just sort of like, I'm vaguely out of touch, and to make him like the most insanely out of touch like is a natural progression, and it works with like not like a bowling ball, the line right in this scene we're talking about. In US, these are all called Mario Karts. I was just like, what is this? What is this hilarious
about? I just think it's a fun thing, because if somebody's going to believe they wrote a script when they didn't, they kind of have to be that way. So I think to kind of make that work, they leaned into a little bit
I don't mind it. It's funny. It just feels... the rest of the characters feel like, yes, these are the characters that I've seen / read before. Young Neil is like, I don't know who this is. This is...
It's fresh and new.
How fresh and new.
So fresh and new.
We did skip by, which Pete referred to earlier, a bunch of cameos, which was very fun. We did get to see the 2 security guards.
Yeah.
This is like, I don't know how deep this is, but like this is definitely like several layers deep in terms of Easter egg. Is the 2 security guards are Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, who are the stars of the Cornetto trilogy, which was directed by Edgar Wright, who directed Scott Pilgrim versus the World. So putting them together in here when I don't think they were in the original Scott Pilgrim movie, very fun casting there. Weirdly, the director of the movie, whose name is Edgar Wrong, is not Edgar Wright. It's the voice of Kevin McDonald, probably the Kevin McDonald from Kids in the Hall.
Not, definitely.
That was awesome.
McDonald, who I think is a political guy. But yeah, super fun. I don't know why they didn't get Edgar Wright, though. Maybe he didn't want to do it?
Oh, or maybe the voice wasn't as, I mean, hearing Kevin's voice was really hilarious. Maybe Edgar's voice didn't have the recognition, you know what I mean?
Maybe.
Yeah.
And we got Matt Rogers and Bowen Yang as the TV gossip.
Yes.
Las Culturistas in the house. Shouts to them.
Very fun.
And Griffin Newman back for some more voices.
Griffin Newman and Kirby Howell Baptiste. We didn't mention this the last episode, but Griffin and Kirby Howell Baptiste seem to be like these utility players they keep throwing into roles.
Great work.
I really, while we're just calling out random things, such a stupid joke, but when Lucas's agent calls him up at the beginning and tells him this town is on the verge of saying "see you later, boy." Great line.
Skater boy, great. Sort of a backwards callback. I also like he answers the phone. What did I do right this time? Which is not something I often answer the phone when my reps call. But badass.
Also, I loved how he's like, "I'll fix this with a smile," and she was like, "We're on the phone. I can't see you." It was fun.
Yeah. Later lines, I got blitzed and puked on Winifred Haley was fun. I knew Lucas was going to be in her handbag, in Ramona's handbag in a great way.
That was great. I love seeing that is one of my favorite visuals. Yes. And he has such a thick neck versus like Scott, who's a little guy coming out of there. He fills the whole thing. Very fun. Here's something that maybe I'm misinterpreting, but I thought was kind of interesting. Because of the way things rolled out in the first episode, Ramona never found out about knives the way that she does in the book and the way that she does in the movie. She finds out through this movie script, but doesn't react to it, as far as I could tell. What did you think about that change?
Well, I think that it's, real stump the panel moment there. I feel like she's moved past it. I think the show's moved, but that always felt like something that was being ginned up for the sake of the story, because like Scott, while technically was dating them at the same time, like when he met Ramona, he was emotionally done with knives. He wasn't like cheating. So like that always felt a little bit like, well, yes, I know this is bothering Pete.
I'm sorry, what?
He wasn't.
That doesn't count, bro. You can be emotionally done with somebody, but until you break up with them.
Yes.
No. He wasn't. If you internally feel like you're done, but you haven't said it externally, you're free to say whatever you want.
I'm not saying I endorse that behavior, but
it seems like that's exactly what you're saying.
But I'm just saying he wasn't dating them both in a consistently ongoing basis and cheating on them. He hadn't done the hard thing of breaking up with knives because he was in quote unquote love with Ramona, and he should have done that, but it just felt like more of a technical thing rather than a true indiscretion. And I think this show is trying to say like, that's not enough of a thing for her to hang her story on, or for her to be as a character that upset about.
I think, Alex, to really answer your question, the moment when she was like, we haven't been there yet, that all got taken away from us when he died, when Lucas Lee was like, yeah, your boyfriend, and she's like, he's not my boyfriend. We have this whole love story that we've seen happen, but it hasn't happened to her. So she doesn't really she had one nice date. So like to get upset, I think she's not all the way invested in this relationship. She has moments where she is, but she's also kind of just pulling together facts, and she freaked out more about the hair color of the actor playing her than she did anything else. Yeah,
I think we're saying the same thing, Pete.
Okay.
Well, I
think you were saying some bullshit.
But then you said it. Then you said it too. Then you said it too. So we're in the same.
I wasn't saying anything about Scott. If you got to break up with somebody if you're going to date somebody else. That's just how
So are you saying? And if you met someone on the same caliber of Ramona, you would be like, I'm sorry, I can't speak to you right now. I am still technically in a little bit of a relationship.
Speaking and spending a night with somebody.
But if you're already emotionally invested in this new person, aren't you technically cheating just by feeling that love? I'm just saying, you have the hard line.
You're way too...
You're busted.
No, I am not.
Free
if
love.
Someone asked me out on a date, I would be like, I'm sorry, I can't go out on this date with you. I am still dating somebody. But if you give me an hour, I can go break up with them, and then we can go on that date.
That to me is pretty fucked up too, by the way. Give me 1 hour, I'm going to go break a heart. I'll be right back.
Sounds nice. See you in a bit.
Yeah, Bugs Bunny over here.
Yeah. You're both insane. Why don't we talk about this part instead? So, what was I going to ask about? I was really trying to get off of this topic.
Nice. I have a topic if you need one. So we get a little bit of an indicator here, like, how did you know about this scene, Neil? You weren't there, and this script has it. Sort of insinuating that there's only, one of two people that could have written the script, Scott being one of them. Does that mean that the person in the mask, who we think is the kidnapper, is that Scott himself? Did a future Scott kidnap himself?
Scott?
Or I think Nega Scott is what I had written down as Nega Scott is the kidnapper here.
Interesting.
Wow.
Theory.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out.
I also am still pulling for Portal Minion, but we'll see.
And just to be clear, you're talking, for anybody who didn't listen to the previous episode, you're talking about the Minions from the Despicable Me series and the Minions series.
No, I'm talking about the fact that
they grabbed Scott because they thought he was a nice, fresh da-na-na.
You love saying
worth
that.
it.
You say it all the time.
I do. He was wearing a yellow shirt, so it's easy to make that mistake because of da-na-na.
I'm not deep into Minions canon. Like, is that their whole thing? Is they like bananas?
Yeah, they love bananas, which is
That's
weird because they look like bananas.
Yes. I guess they're trying to devour themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
In order to,
you think they've gotten to become
devour yourself? What were you going to say?
I was sort of agreeing with you. Like, you think they've taken on that color because they've eaten so many bananas?
Yeah, 100%. Either that or they have scurvy. One of the two. But whatever. The new movie is coming out soon.
My point was that Minions are just kind of like background extras that have similar outfits, and he could be just someone who works on portals. He's a portal minion.
I would say, Pete, if you want to make that reference, I would use a different word than minion. Just hypothetically, it might keep this conversation from happening again.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I feel like a lot of people are going to be like, Pete loves Minions. Why does Pete love Minions?
I'm sorry that we have to keep going down this hole, and it's my fault, and I apologize.
You're the portal minion in a lot of ways, putting us down this.
What you got to do is, before you get on to whatever the next thing you're going to talk about, you got to break up with the Minions first.
Yeah, you got to break up with this conversation before you even start the next conversation, right, Pete? You can't even talk to the next conversation unless this conversation has been formally closed.
$999.99. That was really funny.
But did you just break up with the last conversation, Pete? Because I'm in the last conversation.
That coin thing in the bottom, it really reminded me of the video game.
You see that? You sound like you're making it up. Only proving my point that you're a dog shit at this video game and you can't get any far enough along for us to review it.
I'm sorry, I'm trying, except I'm not really trying at all. But I will try, I promise. Here's one that I want to throw out to Pete because I know you feel so strongly about this. When Lucas finally reads the script, he says to Ramona, the ending is unrealistic. The Ramona I know would be on to the next one, which is a clear reference to the end of the movie and the controversy over it.
Or it's a clear reference to how he thinks Ramona operates because she just leaves a trail of X's and just moves on to the next one. From his perspective, when he saw her in the hallway already making eyes at another dude, that's what he
Todd,
thinks
it was Todd.
like.
Todd.
Yeah, she dates Todd after Lucas. That's who she was in the hallway with. But what do you think about that? Like, do you think Do you think this Ramona, for example, would make different choices than the Ramona in the movie and in the book?
Well, I hope not, because this version it seems like Ramona and Scott are going to hopefully get together at the end, you know?
Don't you want Knives to be with Scott?
No, I don't know.
Not
also,
in the,
Scott
really,
is
though?
dead, right? Scott,
Yeah.
like, I think we determined that when you hear Ramona in subspace, that's actually his death rattle.
No, she says he's alive in this episode.
She's fooling herself.
When you say you want Ramona to be with Scott, you mean like in a grave, dead.
Yeah. Scott Pilgrim takes off to hell.
Yeah.
God.
Well, that's funny though that you're not interested in Knives and Scott in this show. And why is that? Because Knives is different?
No, I just feel like they do a better job with their relationship. Like in the last one, it was almost a choose your own adventure. Who's it going to be? You know,
In the movie, you mean?
Yeah. And so it was fun. The classic kind of Dorothy at the end. I had the power the whole time. He realized Knives was the one he was supposed to love the whole time, the one he was with. So I thought that was a sweet message, worked well for that setup. For this, they kind of from the beginning you're saying, okay, it's going to be Ramona and Scott, and I'm eating it up and I'm enjoying it.
I would say though, the way this show's going, it may not even be Ramona and Scott. Like it feels like Ramona, this is such an introspection of her. I don't know if she is going to be like, all right, let's
Dude,
date.
the title cards, bro. You see them kiss at the end of the title.
Scott Pilgrim is also in the titles a lot, and he's not really in the show. So
Yeah.
I'm saying,
And people kiss all the time, and that doesn't mean they're married.
what?
Yeah, and in fact,
Spoiler.
according to Justin, you're allowed to kiss whoever you want at any point you want, and it's
Hey,
not cheating.
As long as you're emotionally invested in what's happening and emotionally over.
Life is
somebody else.
expensive, but kissing's free. So get out there and kiss.
I tell you, one thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to Lucas Lee, like, you know, you think that all of this person's supposed to get better, they could have this character arc. I love the moment where you think Lucas Lee had this kind of nice, touching moment, and then he sees a kid skating, and then like pushes the kid and takes the skateboard and laughs. I thought that was hysterical. And even though Lucas Lee kind of maybe had some closure in life, he's still a piece of shit kind of Hollywood guy. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow. You don't like him? I thought he comes off here like being pretty. I like him. I just want him around
think he's
giving me
fun.
one-liners.
Yeah, I do. I think Chris Evans is killing it. This is so much fun, but he's still a douchebag at the end of the day. He takes a little kid's skateboard or a grown adult skateboard.
Chris Evans is so good in this role. I know we said that before, probably back in episode 2, if I remember correctly, but he is so funny in this episode.
Very funny.
Every line absolutely crushes. Before we start to wrap up here, though, every episode we've been talking about the fights. I thought this was maybe also the best fight in the show so far.
Yes.
Lucas
Oh my
Lee
God,
versus the
so
paparazzi. So many cool moves here. So many things that I feel like I was 100% missing from like Tony Hawk games and things like that.
That's what it felt like for sure.
The spin move through the paparazzi was really cool. Them all boarding up and then him slamming into it, just great. Just like really good camera angles throughout here. It really spun around and followed him, and just fun.
Also, the way the kind of ninjas were yelling, like, you're surrounded, you actor scum. Hysterical. Just really funny stuff.
See, it's funny. Like, I thought the fight was fine, but I prefer the more up close fights and whatnot. There's something I just didn't hit me. No knock. It's just different tastes.
Different tastes.
I love the use of the skateboard in the fighting. It was just so much fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, folks, this was a close one, given how hostile Justin was to the episode. But I'm still going to give it to Scott Pilgrim at the end of the day. We're going to be talking about the rest of the episodes, so we still got plenty more chances to win. If you'd like to support the show and all the shows we do, patreon.com/comicbookclub. Also, we do a live show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. to Facebook and YouTube. Come hang out. We would love to chat with you about Scott Pilgrim. Apple, Spotify, Android, or the app of your choice to subscribe, listen, and follow the show at Comic Book Live on Twitter/X, Comic Book Club Live on TikTok and Instagram, comicbookclublive.com for this podcast and many more. And 4 more chances to take this, plus the video game, of course, which I'm really making some great progress on.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. And just before we move on to the next podcast, I like to formally break up with this podcast.
I just like to say the Johnny Cash at the end was a nice touch as well.
Creative process is a mystery.
I said we were broken up, Pete, and you kept going with this relationship in this podcast, so now you're cheating.